Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and wherever you are, hope you're having a great day. I am going to be talking today about leadership in the AI era, in the age of AI. And I've been intrigued by this because as all of the aspects of work is changing, because we're using AI now in so many of the things that we do, I was curious to see how is leadership actually changing, and so how excuse me, how do we think about how leaders need to show up? How do we do our jobs differently as leaders? And in particular, what are some of the new challenges that AI creates because of the unique aspects of it? And I also talk a little bit about what to expect in the future too, as well. So lots of things going on here. I have a ton of content that I want to get through, and I would love for you to share. First of all, if you're coming from someplace, how are you leading AI? How are you leading differently because of AI now? And this could be in the ways that you are using AI to enhance the things that you do as a leader, and we'll talk about how that can happen. But also, what are the new challenges or things that you are finding yourself needing to do? I would love to hear from you. Again, here within the comments on the live stream, but also reach out to me because I'm doing research on this right now. And we're actively, my co-author for the book Winning with AI, Katja Welsh, and I are literally finishing it. And this whole question of how leadership is changing is right at the forefront of our thinking. All right, so I have some slides today. Hello, Jay. Great to see you. Always love to see Jay's smiling face over here in the chat here. And thank you for sharing the slides, Jay. The slides, let me go find them, are going to be here, and let me get into it. All right, so one of the things we talk about is the need for speed when it comes to AI, and that speed is a new mode. And our thinking is that leadership in particular is this huge accelerant for AI value creation. In particular, if you have a great strategy and everything, that's great. But unless you have strong leadership too, as well, that can drive the results forward, then it's going to be very difficult to execute on that. But how leadership itself is being impacted by AI. So I want to do a deeper dive into this. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper than just how does AI, how does leadership need to change? Because we've talked about this a little bit in the past, that because of the great levels of uncertainty, you have to be able to ask questions, not have all the right answers. But I want to go a little bit deeper into that and explore really what changes because of AI. And so to look at this, let's just go a little bit deeper into what are the things that leaders do. And this is the classic way to think about it. There are three things. First of all, leaders have to understand the situation that they're in. They have to make sense of what's happening inside the organization and also outside of it. And this is one of the hardest things that leaders do. It's so hard to understand what's reality because, especially if you're working in a fairly large organization, you don't know what's happening at the front lines and you're relying on people to tell you. But now, technology with internal collaboration platforms like Slack or Teams, you have a better sense of what's going on. And that power distance is shrinking and that information gap is shrinking. But it's still really hard to make sense. There's just so much information out there. Then leaders need to decide what's the right path to go forward. They have to set the strategy, tell people this is what we're going to do, this is what we're not going to do. And then the last thing leaders do is to communicate. Like, this is the direction we're going in. This is how we're doing. These are places we need to improve. So it's about driving that momentum forward, and also using communication to foster that relationship with your followers. So those are the top three big areas of responsibilities of leadership. That has been the case for thousands of years. Nothing changes around that. What does change is how we do those three things. And it changes it in three different ways. And I think about it as an upgrade. So we have the way that we are leaders 1.0, and then you can have leadership 2.0. And what AI does, it expands our capacity to do each of those three things: understand, decide, and to communicate. And the three ways is that you have expanded radar. You can see more of what matters in each of those three areas. Your ability to react and to do things is much faster, it's smarter, and it's in real time. So these reflexes that you have, and then the reach, the impact that you can have around understanding, again, not just only of yourself, but expanding that to across your organization. I think about it as scaling and being able to scale your leadership throughout the entire organization. So being able to deliver even more impact. It's a little bit different than the scale of the radar. Again, it's just an expansion of what is possible that you look at and consider, but it's also the impact that you drive. So I think one of these things that we oftentimes think about is, how do we actually do each of these three things? And I'm going to go into a little bit more depth into each of these areas and talk specifically about how AI changes the way we do each of these three areas, and in particular with these three R's. So the first area is understanding how you can sharpen your radar. The first thing is, first of all, you can just see a lot more. You can detect trends, you can see signals. Again, you can just ingest a lot more information. And again, this information overload that a lot of leaders have becomes more manageable because you can throw it into AI or have AI tools sitting on top of your analytics dashboard and just gives you more information. You can take all of that unstructured data and make sense of it. The other thing is it allows you to respond in real time. And then the actual reach is that you can push those insights out into every team member. So it's not only you that's benefiting from that intelligence that comes up from that understanding, but the reach and the scale at which you can share those insights now is just exponential because of AI. And also giving people the access to those same tools. Now, when it comes to decision making, this is really interesting. It's about accelerating those reflexes that you have. So, again, from the radar perspective, it's being able to analyze and understand a lot more different options, to understand the risks that you may be having, and to make all these trade offs, to run scenarios and simulations, to use digital twins of organizations or customers to be able to model some of the impacts of your actions. And again, I think that the reach and scale of decision making is that you can have these smart decisions start being made across the entire organization. There's greater transparency about how decisions are made, and multiple people can participate in the decision making process itself. That you may not want too many cooks in the kitchen to make those decisions, but you can get inputs from a lot of different people and be able to run scenarios by them, for example. And then the last area, which is communicating. This is about expanding and extending your reach. So again, with Radar, you can understand more of what your audience needs and wants, what are their concerns, and then you can adjust your message and tone in the moment in real time, but you can also communicate more personally to each person and to do it consistently and at scale. Again, for people who are using AI to create presentations, to write scripts, to just think through how to communicate better, we're already seeing a huge implication of this. So I think if you think about some of the implications around how we use AI, it's also this whole idea that as a leader, this is such an important reason of why you yourself need to become fluent with AI, because the potential to lead in a better and different way is just huge. Again, think about how we can make ourselves just much more effective in doing each of these three things of understanding, decision making, and also of communicating, and how we can just amplify and augment the things that we do as leaders with AI. So that was a quick dive into how AI can enhance and augment your leadership practices. But I want to go into a more organizational perspective of how does AI change the way you lead? What are some of the new challenges or aspects to think about. And there are two areas in particular. Let me get the slides back up. Oh, sorry, this is just a quick review of all those three areas, a 3x3 grid of those three areas of responsibility and the three ways that AI is changing it. So the new leadership challenges that it also AI changes the scope of what you have to manage. And so there are two challenges that emerge. First of all, people are becoming AI augmented, and that has implications for how they are working differently and also how you need to lead them differently. And the second challenge I'll talk about today is the need to be able to manage these autonomous systems that are starting to crop up with agentic AI. And the question becomes, well, the whole idea is that they're autonomous, right? So you don't need to actually manage them. Oh, no, 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 no. You do have to manage them. You need to figure out how they're going to work alongside your people. So we'll go into these two challenges in a bit more detail. Um, let's see. The first area is leading these AI augmented teams. And so the first area is around what I call expertise reversal. And I've been hearing this from quite a few leaders where they say, my team knows how to use AI better than I do. That makes me feel really insecure. And so, again, I think that one of the solutions here is to get AI fluent yourself. But this goes back to the whole issue of people used to come to me for all of the answers. And the reality is, I don't have them anymore. So does that diminish my authority as a leader? And the best leaders know that they surround themselves with people who can do the job better than they do, who are smarter than they are. And they're very secure in that. And so, again, this is about how do we adapt to these new sources of insights? And it's a flipping of that expertise. And it can be challenging for leaders who are used to a more traditional definition of leadership. Again, I think good, strong leaders have always practices, but it becomes a big focus and it's just under a huge microscope now because AI just really accelerates the learning of the people on your team. And if you're not at that level, it can feel really intimidating. So the other one is actually a very real one in that your high performing, AI fluent, augmented employees are going to leave potentially if their new productivity, their impact that they're having is not recognized or rewarded. Some of the research now says that there is a premium put on AI fluent employees of $18,000 on average. So, unless they're seeing some sort of compensation or rewards or recognition that they are doing a lot more work than they have, they're going to look around and say, well, maybe another organization would appreciate that I bring all this extra value and I would be appreciated more. I'd be given more responsibilities. I can get paid more, even potentially. So, this is something we have to take into consideration as our team members become much more capable. What does that mean in terms of their expectations? And it may be about giving them more responsibilities, teaching them and encouraging and coaching them on how to do that as they have these new abilities. And something that's also very important is that we talked a little bit last time about how important it is to get your entire workforce AI fluent. And the reality is, it's going to be uneven. Some people are going to just jump into it. Others are going to be like, I don't want anything to do with this. And the reality, there's going to be a gap in terms of that fluency. So, how are you going to manage that even within teams? So, you can try to close this gap, but it's also potentially that you may have to redesign who does what work. You may have to set some more expectations about how everyone needs to be doing this so that just realize that there are going to be gaps in fluency, and that's going to put some pressure and some tensions within teams of people who have that fluency and people who don't. And again, you want to close those gaps, but working with the reality that there will be these gaps is a key part of leading these teams. All right, let me go on to the really interesting area of these autonomous systems. And the area here is not the fact that should you use these. It's clear that automation is coming with these agentic AIs. Again, it's still very early on, but I really want to encourage you to think about how you and your other leaders and managers in the organization are going to have to think about this. So, one question is, when is the right time to go autonomous? When do you switch over from just having humans with AI to having these autonomous systems on their own? Uh, again, and when is one system better than the other? So that is going to require some judgment, some data and input, but realize that as you are incorporating AI into things, you're never going to have just human alone anymore. It's always going to be human augmented with AI. The question becomes, when do you flip it over to having an autonomous system to it? And part of it is, when are the systems ready? But also, when are your people going to be ready? And what do you need to do to prepare your people to work alongside these autonomous systems? How do you develop the trust that your people need to have in these autonomous systems to be able to let go and let these systems do their own? The second question is accountability. When AI is working on its own, it's these autonomous agentic AI. Who's responsible for that? Who's responsible when something goes wrong? Is it the programmers, the technology people who built it? Is it you as the leader of the team? Is it the people who are using this alongside it, working, putting in the inputs, putting outputs? And so there needs to be some ownership defined, because there's no person there anymore. So, and again, it could be a shared responsibility, but defining accountability so that you know who to go to when something goes wrong so it can be fixed. And the last part is a really interesting conundrum that's come up. And that is this whole idea of, we have humans in the loop these days because we don't necessarily trust the AI to do the right thing. But we could have this other question is, when do we need the humans to get out of the loop? Because the AI is doing a better job of making the decisions, and the humans are the ones that are holding it back. The humans are the ones who are making imperfect decisions. They have bias in the way that they're doing things. So there should be some escalation paths here that say, not only when do humans need to be in the loop because these systems don't work that well, but also when do humans need to step back because they're not allowing the oversight that they have is no longer needed, or even that it's holding it back. So again, these are the new kind of questions to think about when you have autonomous systems. And again, if you have experience working with agentic AI and have other challenges, I would love to hear about them. Again, these are just some of the early indications we're hearing from people that as they are rolling out agentic AI systems in their organizations, they're having to grapple with some of these questions. All right. Now, I want us to take a little bit of a break, take a deep breath, and then think about the next frontier. And that is, what happens when AI doesn't just change what we do, but it changes who we become. And so we're seeing this new type of team member, a new type of person in the organization called a superhuman. And they're more than just using AI to do their job. They're more than just augmenting their work with AI. They're becoming this blend of human and AI. They're taking all these amazing human traits that makes us uniquely human. And that's also combining that with these technology capabilities. And what's happening is that these technologies are actually enhancing these human traits and amplifying them. So this question becomes, in the future, leadership is going to have to change because we have to take into account how to foster and to support these superhumans, and also how to work with them, and how do you get them to work with each other to, again, just to create value not only for the organizations but for themselves too as well. So let me get into this a little bit. So, what is a superhuman? Again, Kachi and I are fascinated by this whole idea, in that it really does combine the best of humans and machine. So there are three areas, and we're still working this out, but this is the final part that we're working out. But it's, first of all, we think that there's amplified humanity. So it allows us to deepen our own self-awareness. It amplifies our ability to be empathetic, to understand other people's perspectives and situations. It has a level of emotional intelligence that allows us to be more vulnerable, for example. And that emotional intelligence we know is the foundation for leadership. It is the foundation to be able to establish these relationships and also to give you the ability to make wise decisions because you can remove yourself a bit, have that emotional stability to say, well, I can look at that situation without getting emotionally overwhelmed by what's going on. It has enhanced cognition. Again, just you can just process so much more information and to be able to do those things like understand, decide, and communicate at scale in a way that is just unbelievable. But more importantly, there is this sort of fusion of integrated intelligence. So it's taking all that human intuition, all that creativity and empathy, and taking all the scale and the precision of machines, and so it's not thinking only with AI. And I'm sorry, it's not just thinking through things, but it's thinking with AI side by side. I know that for me as a thought leader, as somebody who does research, the way I do research, the way I think now is very, very different. It's still very much the same sort of analytical approach, but the speed at which I can do it, the levels of sensitivity that I can take into account with many different audiences, it is at such a different level. So I think when we can just keep expanding on that, what are the implications of that then? So one of the like a couple things, and this is again, it's just a very quick overview of those traits of superhumans. And similar to how we had traits of an AI ready organization, these are some of the things that come out of when we see AI and these machines and AI and technology combining with the best of what humans bring. And so the first column is where I'm most excited because we don't think of necessarily that these are things that machines can do. So empathy and compassion. For anybody who has ever experienced empathy fatigue, you know what I'm talking about. You're just tired. You're exhausted from just holding all of these emotions and challenges that people have around you. And the machines can give us some of that buffer, can help us extend our capacity for empathy because the machines don't get tired. AI doesn't get tired. It can just keep going at things. It expands our awareness of ourselves, the ability to reflect and to think things through. Again, our ability to just be more aware of the things that we are going through and understanding ourselves becomes a huge area of learning and expansion. Emotional maturity and vulnerability I talked a little bit about, and then just being able to make better decisions. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I wanted to just give you an idea that, again, there are so many different aspects of what it means to be human. And these are, again, I wanted to really emphasize that one area that we can also expand our humanity more in addition to helping these more kind of intelligence areas of cognition and intelligence that AI would obviously help us with. But it's a combination of these things that makes this superhuman so interesting to us. And in particular, what are some of the implications of this? Well, I think the workplace just gets better because if you think about it, what happens when we often go to work? We're asked to check our humanity at the door, frankly. We're asked to come in and really be focused on our work. Sometimes we have to make decisions that are really hard. And sometimes you have to just set aside some of those emotional things to make those decisions. And I think that the ability to be a superhuman in the space is that you bring that humanity into work. You actually do work better when you can bring that humanity in. And so one of the areas is I think there might be less politics because if we can understand each other better, there's less of a need to go and do all these kind of wacky political things because there's higher trust. One of the examples I often talk about, the reason why we have politics is because you feel like your needs are not being taken care of, that the organization isn't watching out for you. So you need to go advocate for yourself and your team to make sure you guys get what you need versus saying, our team doesn't have what we need. And for the people who are as who are in that same in the ecosystem and those teams that are impacted, because if you get something, then I want something. We can put all those things on the table. We can have a better understanding. We can have the ability to communicate and hear and listen to each other. We can use AI to help facilitate some of these conversations. And we can do this constantly all the time. So the need for politics may actually decrease. And I just find politics to be the one of the worst things and an indicator of dysfunctional organizations, because the communication isn't happening, the listening isn't happening, and if those things can happen, thanks to AI, then it'll be a better workplace. So that's one of the implications. We'll have greater resilience. And again, we talk about change fatigue. And that oftentimes happens when uh, we're going forward, we're making tons of changes. And you may feel this right now because there are so many things that are happening all at the same time. And so it's about change fatigue is put aside when you can see the impact of the work that you're doing, the hard work that you're doing. You can see the impact. It's much more visible. So that communication, the transparency of how decisions are made and what the implications of it are and the impact is, it comes right back at you. So you can see that I put this work in and this is what comes out of it. And our ability then to adopt and adapt is going to be faster because we'll have just greater resilience in ourselves and also our teams. And then I think the potential, the unlock of that is just huge. Again, I like to say that leadership is not a title, it's a mindset. And superhumans are going to have a different mindset. They're just going to feel much more capable. Their ability to take on tasks, to participate, to make decisions are just going to be at an elevated level. But that won't happen unless they feel that the ownership of the scope of things that they can work on is also expanding. And that is going to create challenges for an organization. Similar to, again, how this augmented AI, people are going to have some challenges. Superhumans, even more so. Like they're going to be pushing at the edges. Like, but I can do so much more now. Can I have more of that ownership and that agency? So again, this is my last slide for today is how do you accelerate and lead a superhuman workforce? Because you can see the benefits of this. And I think the first one is that we have to design our HR systems for growth, for evolution of all these different roles in the systems that are going to evolve at the speed of our people. So instead of being reactive to the fact that people are growing in this way, is being proactive and anticipating that people are going to have these amazing superpowers. It's really modeling and talking about continuous learning. Again, I've always said that leaders, you have to go first. You have to walk the talk and be visibly and vulnerably doing this work about learning. And it models a way that how do you become a superhuman? Well, you have to try and experiment and do a lot of things and experiment with it, but you also will not always be successful. And that's okay. It's called learning. And then also the psychological trust. Again, if you want to have these superhumans show up and bring their best potential forward, that's going to be involve a lot more debate, a lot more conflict of different opinions of how things would happen. And so your ability as a leader to create that container for people to have these constructive disagreements, but then also that once the decision is made, that they will commit. So again, I'm going through this very quickly, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how important it is for us to think about the implications of an AI fluent workforce, how you're going to have to expand your leadership capacity to just, first of all, take advantage of what AI can do to just help you be a better leader. But you also have to anticipate how your leadership is going to have to change, looking at how you want to manage these people, manage autonomous systems, but also how do you foster this amazing person who is becoming a superhuman, because I think we would all benefit. And the last point I would say is that if the only thing that we're doing with AI is to make our organizations more efficient, more productive, then we're missing the point. I think that AI can help us be not just better humans, but a better society. And it's going to only happen if leaders like you are taking the steps to find ways to enhance and to augment the things that make us unique as people, to again amplify these strengths that we bring to the table. And again, being able to amplify our humanity with this technology rather than to dampen it down, leave it at the door, I think is the biggest potential. All right, so there were a bunch of comments here today, and I think I see lots of comments here from Jay Bryan, Jay Johnson. And one of the things I do want to just very quickly talk about this is, how do we promote rapid learning? Hierarchies can obfuscate and create walled gardens. I came across this thing this past week in that AI doesn't understand silos. So one of the most important things we have to do is to break down these silos, because data lives in silos, processes live in silos, and AI hates silos. It's like, why is this here? It's one customer, one organization. So break down these silos. So I think, Jay, you have a great point in that hierarchies, silos, these things tend to, again, be broken down because of the use of these technologies. All right, last point for today. Next week, I will be back. And again, at the same time, Tuesday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. And we'll be talking about how to get data ready for AI. There's this conception that data has to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be clean. It just has to be ready. And so we'll talk about what that looks like. Lots of great content in here. And I will see you in a week. In the meantime, please connect with me. Tell me how your leadership journey is being impacted by AI. I would love to hear from you. All right. Take care, everyone. And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.